I used to think that success was all about innovation, about creating something that would change the world. I was wrong, of course, because what I quickly learned is that in the world of business, success is about much more than just being good at what you do. It's about the right connections, the right timing, and, unfortunately, the right amount of manipulation. My name is Olivia Foster Bennett, and for 6 years, I dedicated my life to making Bennett Technologies one of the leading names in the tech industry. It wasn't just a job for me, it was my passion, my life's work. I had poured every ounce of myself into the company, staying up long nights, conducting countless experiments, and making breakthrough after breakthrough. But as I look back now, I see that I was never truly seen for what I was. I had always known that I was different from the other people in the company. I wasn't a businessman like my husband Daniel, or like his mother, Victoria. I was a scientist, a creator, someone who believed in the power of discovery and innovation. But in a world that prized profit margins, corporate strategy, and public image above all else, my work, no matter how groundbreaking, was always secondary. It was easy for them to overlook me. I wasn't the one who made the high-level decisions or sat at the head of the board meetings. Victoria, Daniel's mother, ruled Bennett Technologies with an iron fist. To her, the company was an extension of her personal empire. She didn't have time for sentimentality, for the quiet genius who labored away in the lab while everyone else played the game of corporate chess. And for years, I believed that if I just worked hard enough, if I just kept my head down and kept pushing forward with my inventions, I would eventually get the recognition I deserved. But that recognition never came. Instead, it was always Victoria who took the spotlight, always Victoria who made the decisions, always Victoria who led the charge. And what she didn't realize, what she refused to understand, was that the success of Bennett Technologies was built on my work. The innovations that made the company a household name, the patents that attracted investors, the tech breakthroughs that kept us ahead of the competition, they were all mine. But I was always cast aside in favor of the shiny, polished version of success that Victoria represented. I thought I could accept that. I thought I could be content knowing that my work was advancing the company, even if I wasn't the one getting credit. But that was before the IPO. That was before everything changed. The company was about to go public, and suddenly, everything that had been in the background, everything I had built, was under threat. Victoria, in all her corporate wisdom, saw the upcoming IPO as the perfect opportunity to cement her legacy. She needed control, she needed leadership, and she needed the company to look clean, efficient, and perfectly packaged for investors. And that meant getting rid of me. I don't think I ever truly understood the depth of Victoria's disdain for me until that moment. She had always seen me as an inconvenience, someone who didn't quite fit into the polished, high-powered world she had created for herself. I wasn't the businesswoman she thought I should be. I wasn't the suit-and-tie executive who could spin a compelling story for investors. I wasn't her ideal image of what the future of Bennett Technologies should look like. I remember the day she first said it. I was sitting in the boardroom, papers spread in front of me, preparing for yet another meeting. Daniel sat beside me, as he always did, but I could see it in his eyes. The uncertainty, the distance. He was already losing his grip on our relationship, already slipping into the mold his mother had cast for him. And then, in a flash of arrogance, Victoria's voice cut through the room like a knife. "We need someone who understands the corporate world, not just tinkering," she said, her words dripping with condescension. I tried to keep my face neutral, but inside, something snapped. This was no longer about business. This was personal. Victoria's words weren't just dismissive of my work. They were an attack on everything I had ever done for Bennett Technologies. They were a statement that everything I had sacrificed, everything I had contributed, meant nothing to her. She didn't care about the long hours, the sleepless nights, the late-night breakthroughs that had made the company what it was. To her, I was just a scientist playing at being an executive. I wasn't one of them. I wasn't part of her perfect world. It wasn't long after that meeting that the board's decision came down. Victoria had engineered it all. She knew exactly how to manipulate the situation, how to make the board see things her way. They didn't care about my work. They cared about maintaining control. And so, the decision was made. I was to be removed from my position, my responsibilities stripped away, my contributions ignored. The research and development department would be handed over to Margaret Phillips, Victoria's goddaughter, a woman with a business degree from Wharton, but no real understanding of the work I had done. It wasn't even a surprise when the severance package arrived. Victoria's words echoed in my mind as I looked at the papers before me. A generous severance package, they called it. More like hush money. A way to buy my silence, to make me go away quietly so that her company, the company I had helped build, could continue without me. And all I had to do was sign away everything. My contributions, my legacy, my patents. All of it. Gone. I thought about it for a moment. I could sign the papers, take the money, and walk away. It would be the easiest thing in the world. But that was never going to happen. Not now. Not after everything I had sacrificed, and not after everything Victoria had taken from me. I asked her quietly, "And if I refuse?" Her smile tightened. "Then we'll have to revisit your employment contract," she said, her voice colder than I had ever heard it. "I'm sure you remember the non-compete clause. It would be a shame if you couldn't work in this industry for the next 5 years." I had written that clause myself, years ago, thinking I was protecting the company, protecting my family. But now it felt like a noose around my neck. A trap. That was the moment I knew. Victoria wasn't just trying to take my job. She was trying to erase me, to push me aside so that she could claim all the glory, all the power, all the control. And I wasn't going to let her. I looked down at the papers again, the severance agreement that they expected me to sign, and I felt something stir deep inside me. This wasn't just about a job. This was about everything I had worked for, everything I had built, everything I had fought for. I had been fighting in the shadows for so long, trying to prove my worth. But now I wasn't going to hide anymore. "I'll take my time to review these documents with my lawyer," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Victoria waved dismissively. "Take all the time you need," she said. "But I expect your office cleared out by the end of the day. Margaret needs to hit the ground running." I nodded, but inside, I knew that I wasn't going to walk away. I wasn't going to let Victoria, or anyone else, take what was mine. The game was just beginning, and this time, I was going to play by my own rules. The quiet hum of the elevator as it descended from the executive floors was the first thing I noticed when I stepped out of that boardroom. I had expected the ride down to be filled with the anxiety of a life about to unravel, but instead, it felt oddly calm. Perhaps it was the calm before the storm, I thought. Maybe I was simply too numb to fully grasp what was happening. I had just been removed from the company I helped build, my work dismissed, and my name wiped from the legacy of Bennett Technologies. But something inside me was awakening, a deep, growing realization that this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something far bigger. I walked out of the building with my head held high, but the walk wasn't just a physical journey. It was a mental one. In those few moments, between the cold glass doors of Bennett Technologies and the parking garage, I made a choice. It wasn't a choice between staying or leaving. It was a choice between submitting to the corporate world that had already decided my fate and fighting for what I had built, for what was rightfully mine. And so, I made my decision. I would fight. Not just for my job, not just for my title, but for the patents I had developed, the innovations I had created, the soul of the company. This wasn't about ego or proving Victoria wrong, though that would be a sweet victory. No, this was about reclaiming the work I had poured my life into. It was about not letting anyone, least of all Victoria, define my worth. I needed a plan, a strategy to turn the tables and take back what was mine. There was no going back. I could have walked away, signed the severance package, and taken the money. But that wouldn't solve anything. The moment I accepted their offer, I would be silenced, forgotten. Bennett Technologies would continue without me, and my work would become a footnote in their success story. if they even remembered it at all. I couldn't let that happen. I had worked too hard, sacrificed too much. I reached for my phone as I sat in my car, still parked outside the building. My hands were steady now, a contrast to the storm inside me, but that steadiness was part of the plan. There was no room for emotion in this moment. I needed to be calculated. I needed to take the fight to Victoria, not with anger, but with precision. The plan was clear in my mind. Take control of my intellectual property and ensure that no one could ignore it again. Marcus Carter had been my lawyer since the early days of Bennett Technologies. He had helped me structure my patent portfolio, ensuring that I kept ownership over the technologies I had created. I needed him now more than ever. It wasn't just about legal documents. It was about securing my future and ensuring that Bennett Technologies couldn't move forward without acknowledging my contributions. I called Marcus as I started the car. "I need to see you, now." His voice was steady, and I could almost hear the understanding in it. He knew this day would come. We had prepared for it, though I had never imagined it would unfold quite like this. "I'll be at my office in an hour. I'll have everything ready." As I drove to his office, I reflected on the path that had led me here. I had always been careful, meticulous even, about maintaining control over my work. When I first joined Bennett Technologies, I didn't think about patents or intellectual property in the way that Victoria and the board did. I thought about innovation, about pushing the boundaries of technology. But the more I worked, the more I realized that innovation alone wasn't enough. You had to protect it. You had to make sure no one else could take it from you. Now, as I sat across from Marcus, I felt a quiet sense of empowerment. This wasn't the helpless woman I had been in that boardroom just hours ago. This was Olivia Foster Bennett, the woman who had changed the course of Bennett Technologies and would now change the future of her own legacy. I wasn't just a casualty in their corporate war. I was a force, and it was time to wield that power. Marcus opened the file in front of him, pulling out the documents that had been carefully prepared over the years. We went over them one by one, meticulously reviewing the licensing agreements, the patents, the correspondence with the company's legal team. I had maintained a careful paper trail, one that proved that I hadn't just been a passive employee at Bennett Technologies. I had built the foundation of their success, and now it was time to make sure that foundation was mine to protect. "Olivia, these documents are solid," Marcus said, his voice steady but with a hint of admiration. "You've got the upper hand here. The company can't move forward without your approval. Without your patents, their new product line is dead in the water." I felt a sense of relief, but it was tempered by a realization of just how far Victoria would go to maintain control. She hadn't just tried to remove me from my position. She had tried to erase me entirely. She had underestimated me, and now I would make sure she understood exactly what that mistake cost her. I spent the next few days preparing for the inevitable. I didn't need to fight in the boardroom just yet. The battle was being fought on a different level now. I began to leak information, carefully, strategically, to the press. I knew it wouldn't take long for the investors to catch wind of what was happening. The company was about to launch a new product line, one that was heavily reliant on the technologies I had developed. But without my approval, without the renewal of the licensing agreement for my patents, the launch would be impossible. The press picked up on the story quickly. Rumors spread like wildfire, and soon the news was everywhere. Bennett Technologies couldn't move forward without my approval. They couldn't even secure funding without the patents that I controlled. And Victoria? She tried to downplay the situation, to maintain control of the narrative, but the damage was done. Investors began to pull away, one by one, and the uncertainty in the company grew palpable. Victoria, ever the strategist, tried to silence the noise with her PR team. She painted a picture of a company that was still strong, still moving forward, despite my absence. But it was a facade. Investors weren't buying it, and neither was I. They had underestimated me, and now the tables were turning. I was no longer the scientist in the shadows. I was the one holding the cards, and I would play them. I watched as the news outlets reported on the crisis unfolding at Bennett Technologies. I wasn't sitting back, watching from the sidelines anymore. I had taken control of my own story, and I wasn't going to let anyone rewrite it. Not Victoria, not the board, and certainly not the company that had tried to discard me. My phone buzzed constantly with texts from Daniel, but I didn't respond. I didn't need to. What could he say now? He had sided with his mother, and now he was watching as everything he had built was crumbling. He could no longer pretend that this was just a fight between his wife and his mother. This was bigger than that. This was about the future of the company, about the future of my legacy. In the midst of all this chaos, I found a strange sense of peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone else to give me permission. I wasn't waiting for Victoria to acknowledge me, or Daniel to choose me over his mother. I had taken control, and I would see this through, no matter the cost. The game had just begun, and I was playing it on my terms now. I had always imagined that the moment of reckoning would be dramatic. Some grand confrontation where I would lay everything bare, expose Victoria's true nature, and take back what was rightfully mine. But nothing prepared me for the quiet, almost surreal moment that would change everything. The meeting, the one I had been waiting for, wasn't going to be a heated exchange in front of cameras or an emotional outburst. It was going to be something far more calculated, far more deliberate. I stood in front of Bennett Technologies' headquarters, the towering glass building that had once felt like home. It should have been a symbol of victory, a place where my accomplishments were recognized. Instead, it now felt like a battleground. Every inch of the polished floor I had once walked on now felt like a reminder of what had been taken from me. But that was all it was. Just a building. And today, I was walking in as the person who had all the power, not the one who was being pushed out. I had prepared for this moment meticulously. Every document, every email, every piece of evidence that could prove my ownership of the company's most valuable assets, my patents, was laid out, ready to be presented. I wasn't just going to win, I was going to expose the lies and manipulation Victoria had been orchestrating behind the scenes. And this time, there would be no escape. As I entered the boardroom, I could feel the weight of the eyes on me. Victoria was already sitting at the head of the table, her posture as perfect and poised as ever. To her right was Daniel, looking more uncomfortable than I had ever seen him. And to her left was Margaret, a smug expression on her face, as if she already knew the outcome of this meeting. They all thought they had won, but they had no idea what was about to unfold. Victoria spoke first, as she always did. "Olivia, I'm surprised you're still here. I thought you would have taken the severance package by now. Surely you see this is the best thing for you." Her voice was smooth, almost patronizing, as though she were speaking to someone beneath her, someone she had already dismissed as irrelevant. I stood tall, feeling the familiar pulse of adrenaline surge through my body. "You're wrong, Victoria," I said, my voice steady, even though my heart was pounding in my chest. "This isn't about me. This is about the company you're willing to destroy to feed your own ego." The words hung in the air, and I saw her stiffen, just for a moment. But she quickly regained her composure. "This company has thrived because of my leadership, Olivia. Your time is past. It's time for you to move on." I couldn't help but laugh, though it wasn't a laugh of amusement. It was a laugh born of frustration, born of years of watching someone else take credit for my work. "Your leadership?" I repeated, the words barely escaping my lips as I struggled to contain my anger. "You're not the reason this company succeeded, Victoria. You didn't create a single thing. The technology that made Bennett Technologies what it is today, those patents, those innovations, are mine. You may have been the CEO, but I was the one who built this company from the ground up." The silence in the room was deafening. Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his eyes avoiding mine. But I could see it. Just a flicker of doubt in his eyes. For the first time, he wasn't looking at me as the woman who had fallen short, as the scientist who didn't belong in the corporate world. He was looking at me as someone who was standing up for what she had created, for what was hers. Victoria's face flushed with anger. "This is ridiculous. You're trying to undermine everything I've worked for. I built this company into what it is. You were just a part of the machinery, nothing more. Wait. I stepped forward, feeling the weight of the truth in every word. You didn't build it. You took credit for what I did. You manipulated the board into thinking you were the one responsible for our success. You pushed me out when I became a threat to your perfect little world. But what you forgot, Victoria, is that none of this, none of your precious company, would exist without my work. Victoria's eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, I placed a stack of documents on the table in front of her. The weight of the papers seemed to fill the room, each page a testament to my years of work, to the patents I had carefully kept under my name. I could see the tension in the room grow as the board members leaned forward, trying to make sense of the sudden shift in power. I've been documenting everything, I continued, my voice unwavering. Every email, every agreement, every conversation that proves that I have always held the rights to these patents. I didn't just invent these technologies for the company. I kept the ownership because I knew what would happen if I didn't. And now, it's time for you to face the consequences of your actions. Victoria's composure finally cracked. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words died on her lips as she glanced at the papers in front of her. The truth was laid bare. There was no denying it now. The patents that Bennett Technologies relied on were mine. Mine alone. And no amount of manipulation or corporate spin would change that. Daniel finally spoke, his voice shaky. Olivia, what are you doing? This isn't the way to handle this. You're tearing the company apart. You're tearing our family apart. I turned to him, my heart heavy with a mixture of anger and sadness. This isn't about you or me, Daniel. This is about what's right. You chose your side when you stood by your mother, when you watched as she systematically pushed me out. This is the consequence of that choice. I could see the conflict in his eyes, but I didn't have the energy to comfort him, not anymore. I had spent too long trying to make this marriage work, trying to build something with him, only to be met with betrayal after betrayal. He had chosen his mother's empire over the woman who had stood by him, supported him, and believed in him, and now he had to live with that choice. I turned back to the board, who were now murmuring amongst themselves. The moment of truth had arrived, and there was no turning back. I'm giving you one choice, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was racing. You can support me, legally, financially, and morally, or you can support Victoria's lies. But know this, if you choose her, you choose to watch this company crumble under the weight of her greed. I won't let my work be stolen. I won't let her erase everything I've built. The room fell silent again. Victoria sat rigid in her chair, her eyes flashing with fury, but she couldn't say a word. The board was looking at me differently now, no longer with suspicion, but with the recognition that I had control of the situation. They knew I was right. They knew the company couldn't function without my patents, without the technologies I had developed. It was over. I had won. The vote came quickly after that. No one was surprised when it was unanimous. Victoria was removed as CEO of Bennett Technologies, her empire crumbling beneath her. It wasn't a victory I had ever imagined would come so easily, but it felt like justice. Justice for me, for my work, and for the countless hours I had spent in the lab, creating something that others tried to take credit for. But even as I stood there, victorious, I knew that this battle was just the beginning. I had lost my marriage, my connection to a family that never truly saw me, but I had gained something far more valuable, control of my future. I had taken back what was mine, and now I was free to build something new, something that would never be taken from me again. As I walked out of the boardroom, I didn't feel elated. There was no triumph in my steps. There was only the quiet realization that this was just the first chapter of my new life. I wasn't just a scientist anymore. I wasn't just a wife, a daughter-in-law, or a corporate casualty. I was Olivia Foster Bennett, and the world hadn't seen anything yet. Olivia Foster Bennett's story is not just one of corporate betrayal, legal battles, and intellectual property struggles. It is, in its essence, a journey of self-realization, resilience, and reclaiming one's rightful place in a world that too often underestimates the quiet, behind-the-scenes achievers. From the early days of her career, where she poured countless hours into research and innovation at Bennett Technologies, to the dramatic confrontation with Victoria Bennett, her mother-in-law, Olivia's path was filled with obstacles, both personal and professional. But her journey is a testament to the power of standing firm in one's beliefs, refusing to be defined by others, and the importance of taking ownership of one's work and future. For years, Olivia had lived in the shadow of Victoria's corporate empire. Despite her genius, her groundbreaking patents, and her role in the company's success, she was dismissed, overlooked, and constantly undermined. The very woman who should have been proud of Olivia's accomplishments, the matriarch of the family, had instead chosen to protect her own image, pushing Olivia aside in favor of business convenience. Victoria's actions weren't just about business strategy, they were about control. She didn't want anyone to overshadow her, and Olivia, with her brilliance and independence, was a threat to her carefully constructed world. But Olivia didn't back down. Instead of allowing herself to become a casualty in the corporate game, she fought. And in fighting, she not only reclaimed her intellectual property, but also stood up for her own worth. She recognized that her patents, the heart of Bennett Technologies' success, were her true assets, and she took the necessary steps to protect them, ensuring that her contributions were never erased. The corporate world may have seen her as a hobbyist or a scientist who didn't belong, but Olivia proved that no one could diminish her achievements, her vision, or her rightful place at the table. The turning point in Olivia's story came when she realized that her worth was not tied to her position within a company, nor to the approval of those who had constantly disregarded her. Her journey wasn't about seeking revenge, it was about restoring balance. She wasn't just fighting for what belonged to her, she was fighting to be recognized as the leader and innovator she truly was. In the end, Olivia didn't just win a legal battle, she reclaimed her narrative. The victory wasn't in the documents signed, nor in the corporate moves made. The real victory was in Olivia finding the strength to stand up for herself, to assert her value, and to walk away from the toxic influence of a family and a company that had tried to write her out of her own story. Her fight wasn't easy, nor was it quick. There were moments of doubt, moments when the weight of the situation seemed unbearable. But Olivia's resilience, the determination to keep moving forward, no matter how many obstacles were placed in her path, was her true strength. She could have walked away with the severance package, kept quiet, and allowed Victoria and the board to continue as if she had never existed. But Olivia chose to face her challenges head-on, using her intelligence, legal acumen, and, most importantly, her unwavering belief in her own worth. And through that struggle, Olivia learned a powerful lesson. Sometimes standing up for yourself means confronting the people and systems that have been built to keep you down. It means knowing that your value doesn't come from the approval of others, but from your own recognition of your worth. Olivia was the beating heart of Bennett Technologies, and she made sure the world knew it. Her story serves as a reminder to all of us that we are not defined by the titles we hold or the roles others assign us. Our worth is intrinsic. It is defined by our actions, our perseverance, and our ability to stand up for what we believe in, even when the odds are stacked against us. Olivia's journey teaches us that it is never too late to take control of our own narrative. We all have the power to fight for what we deserve and to reshape the future on our own terms. Olivia's story is a powerful example of what it means to reclaim control over your life and your future, especially when faced with forces that seem insurmountable. It is a reminder that when others try to minimize our contributions or undermine our efforts, we must stand up and assert our value. Whether in the corporate world or in personal relationships, knowing your worth is crucial. But recognizing your worth is only the first step. The real challenge and the real strength lies in fighting for that worth, even when others try to push you down. In our own lives, we can apply Olivia's lesson in a number of ways. Whether it's in your career, relationships, or personal projects, Understanding what you bring to the table is essential. Take time to reflect on your contributions, talents, and the value you provide. Don't let anyone, no matter how powerful or influential, make you feel insignificant. It's easy to feel like giving up when faced with opposition, but Olivia's story shows that the fight is worth it. Protect what is yours: your work, your rights, your future. If you're being overlooked or your contributions are being stolen, it's important to stand up and claim what belongs to you. Don't let others define who you are or what you're capable of. If you don't like where your life is headed or how others perceive you, take steps to change it. Rewrite your story on your terms. Olivia didn't let the company define her legacy. She made sure she defined it herself. Success doesn't come easily, and neither does justice. But Olivia's journey shows that if you are patient and persistent, you can overcome the obstacles in your way. Stay focused on your goals and keep pushing forward, even when it feels like everything is against you. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from toxic environments, even when it feels like everything you've worked for is on the line. Olivia walked away from her marriage, from her family, and from a company that didn't value her. She understood that staying in a situation where she wasn't respected or appreciated wasn't worth the cost to her soul. By embracing these lessons, we can all live more empowered lives, making choices that reflect our true potential and protecting the value we bring to the world. If you've found Olivia's story inspiring and empowering, and if you want to keep hearing more stories like hers, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. By doing so, you'll support the channel's mission to bring more content that motivates, inspires, and empowers individuals like you to take control of your own lives and narratives. Together, we can continue to explore the power of resilience, the importance of self-worth, and the strength it takes to rise above challenges. Thank you for being part of this journey, and I look forward to bringing you more powerful stories and valuable lessons. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an opportunity to learn, grow, and become the best version of yourself.